So that's one lesson.
Now, here's the thing though, what's the current status, I guess, of his family? Didn't like divorce the wife and doesn't talk to kids no more? Because I was thinking about his latest like beer promotion, and I don't know what's gonna happen with that now without him. And I was
Yeah, I
thinking
know.
if he still had his family, it would make sense that the proceeds go to them. But given to how his family's probably fractured, so is it just gonna go up in smoke? I guess.
Some people were talking about that. I think it's all speculative at this point. I know his newest and third wife
Oh
said that
God.
his yeah,
What
yeah,
was he currently married now?
he was married. I forget her name. He's married for a year or two. Um, but yeah, she said that he was, that he'd been talking to his family and they were there. I know Brooke said that she got to tell him that they hadn't spoken. They hadn't spoken in a long time, but she knew something was wrong, I guess, because she said that she was grateful she got to tell him that she loved him the last time they talked. And having lost, my father and I had a very, very hostile relationship. When I was young, it was great, but then, he fell apart as I got older, so we had a very, very broken relationship. But then we reconciled literally a week or so before he died. So I can speak to that. I know how powerful that can be to get that kind of closure. It is important. It's very important. Um, both my parents, I didn't have a good relationship, but in both cases, there was some closure at the end, and so I'm glad that Brooke was able to get that because it was like people were dogging her. She didn't go to his most recent wedding. And then with all the Trump stuff and the other things happening, like he's been making an ass of himself for a while now. And she had to come out and make a public statement like, I don't talk to my dad anymore because he is who he is. And it's just easier not to get involved. And that was sad. I know he was close with Nick, but then again, Nick, kind of a screw up. So you get the feeling that maybe he should have been a little more strict with Nick, but that's a whole conversation in and of itself. I don't know where he was, but yeah, I know Brooke said that she got to say that she loved him and they got that closure. So, that's good. Um,
You ever
yeah,
tried his beer? I know it's not like in all the
oh, no.
states, it's in different.
I've never seen it. I don't know if they sell it in Jersey. From what people tell me, it's just Pabst Blue Ribbon with a different label. I'm
Um,
dominantly a Heineken guy, Guinness also. Yeah, I mean, I might try it eventually. No, I mean, I don't know. That's another thing about him is he seemed to get really like carny in the last couple of years, like desperate to put his name on anything. Because I know he needed the money, obviously, but it felt a little shady sometimes. Like
there
when
was
Jeff
this weird
Jarrett was,
commercial in Japan. I don't know why only in Japan. I forgot what the product was that was being sold, but some dude like was like stealing something and he was trying to get away. And then Hogan was there, so the crowd was like, "Hey, Hogan, hey!" So Hogan starts doing like the Tombstone Power Driver, but it's like the protected thing, and the
yeah,
guy's
yeah,
like,
yeah,
"Hey," and does a leg drop, but the leg is kind of above
yeah,
whatever. So
I saw
yeah.
that.
And the guy
That's
actually got away, but everyone is so busy cheering for Hogan, they don't like whatever. The dude just got away with the money or the purse or whatever he stole.
Another thing we all talk about Hogan. It's important that we're talking about everything, but it's important to talk about some of these things. He had that whole run in Japan a lot of people don't even know about and
Yeah.
don't really um because a lot of people weren't really privy to it unless they read the magazines, but he had a whole other career over there in the late 70s and early 80s. The
Mhm.
WWF run kind of put a stop to that, but he had so many matches with guys you might not even consider, like Abdullah the Butcher. They had a bloodbath in Tokyo,
Oh,
and
Jesus.
he wrestled Stan Hansen. He teamed with Stan Hansen. He wrestled Dusty Rhodes. He teamed with Bob Backlund. Like he did a million things in Japan before he ever won a title or won the WWF title, I should
And
say.
in Japan, he was doing that grapples, reversals, insecurities, and everything.
Oh yeah, I'll say this: the first time I ever saw a Japanese Hogan match was on the Hulkamania 5 tape from Coliseum Video, or I think they called that one Hulkamania Forever. And they had Hulk Hogan versus Stan Hansen, from the Tokyo Dome the week after Hogan lost the belt to the Warrior. So Hogan was coming in with something to prove, and it was originally supposed to be somebody else, but they couldn't make it, so they put Stan Hansen in there. And it had a hell of a match. It ended up being a wild brawl that went all over the arena and into the front row. And Hogan slammed him on a press table and everything. But in the beginning, they're actually trying to trade holds. And I was like 8 years old, 9 years. I would have been 9 years old watching this one, 9 years old. And I'm seeing him do the fucking drop toe hold, spinneroonie front face lock deal, and then the STF and all this stuff. And I was like, okay, so he actually does know how to wrestle, because people would always tease me and be like, he doesn't even know how to wrestle. But then, like, well, clearly he does, because he was taking Stan Hansen to school. And then the match, if anybody hasn't seen the match with the Great Muta, you have to see the match with the Great Muta. I mean, Muta is great regardless of any context, but the Hogan Muta match is just next level. I mean, both of them are playing the character to the hilt. I mean, Muta, God, I love Muta, but they have that ramp. They're at the Tokyo Dome and they have that raised ramp, kind of like WCW used to have, where like it goes right from the entrance straight to the ring. And he gets Hogan backed up on the ropes, and Muta runs all the way back to the entrance. It
Oh
turns
God.
around and all the way back just to clothesline Hogan over the fucking rope and back into the ring. And it's the stupidest, greatest thing you've ever seen in your life. He gets on a fucking rope ladder and does a trapeze swing drop kick on the Hogan. He hits him with the mist. It's an amazing match. Spoiler alert, Hogan wins, LOL, but just a great match. And then people wouldn't even know about this one because it wasn't really televised, but in 1993, no less than Meltzer and The Observer, they had Hogan versus Genichiro Tenryu in 1992 or 91, probably 91. They gave that the Match of the Year award. Best worked match of the year. Hogan versus Tenryu at the Tokyo Dome. I mean, and
I'm
people say
surprised
that
Meltzer was still around even back then. So he was just doing magazines or something before now.
Meltzer goes back to the beginning. He was there right from the beginning. It's just his, back then it was a print newsletter, and then in the internet age, it got more attention. But no, Meltzer was always around. It's kind of shocking how long he's been around, actually. But no, yeah, 91. Every year at the end of the year, they would do the awards for best match, worst match, all of that. And yeah, 1991, Hogan versus Tenryu was match of the year, and that's a match most people on Earth never saw. But the fact that no less than the Observer has it right there in black and white, well, Hogan could work when he had to. People who say otherwise never actually paid attention, but they didn't pay attention anyway. As I said, I was watching Hogan versus Bockwinkel from '83, and at one point, Bockwinkel is up on Hogan, and he starts giving him shots, and Hogan's hunched over, and because of the camera angle, you can barely even see it, but he's hunched over, and he just starts shaking the fists, and immediately 30,000 people start screaming. Most of them probably didn't even see it, but he's just literally, he's bent over after taking a kick to the gut, and he just starts very, very subtly shaking his fists. He's not doing the full Hulk up, but even just that got the people like, oh my God, he's going to get mad. He's going to get mad. And that's the thing between being a wrestler and being a worker. And people who've never had a match will never understand. But when you do understand, because you are a worker, you know why he was the greatest worker of all time. Because you can get 20,000 people to jump out of their chairs by barely shaking your fist.
Jeez.
Some guys have to jump off a fucking balcony to do that. I'm just saying.
Yeah. But that's another thing too. So Hogan, I mean, with all this stuff, he just left this mark in the world because I mean, wrestling just wouldn't be as mainstream now without him and everything. It's a big, all the Stone Colds and Cenas and whoever else. I mean, they're here because of him and
You'd have
everything.
none of that because wrestling had been popular at various points throughout the history of television, going all the way back to the first time people had television. Professional wrestling was there. Professional wrestling was always cheap, easy, weekly programming that you could put on TV for pennies and get 20 million people to watch it. You go back to the very first televisions sold, and there were people watching professional wrestling. However, it was always looked at as like some kind of backwater hillbilly thing. And sometimes
What does Cornette say? Outlaw macho
outlaw
bullshit.
mud show. And sometimes it leaned into that. But then you had a character like Hulk Hogan, who was a hero to children. I can attest to the fact that a lot of women liked him because my mom and her friends were always drooling over him when I'm just trying to watch the match. Um, some women they didn't care that he was balding; they just liked the beefcake. He had an appeal to a lot of people for a lot of different reasons.
The women
And
wanted the 24-inch slight pause pythons.
my mom definitely did. Jesus Christ. But yeah, and he was a master of working the crowd, getting a lot out of a little. And he did, as you said, touch so many lives. And I know that for a fact because I've met through, even before I was in the business, I was a mark going to conventions, meeting as many wrestlers as I could. And I've met a lot of people who knew and worked with Hulk Hogan. And it's hard not to bring his name up in conversation as a question sometimes. Uh, when I was a kid, when I met Jake the Snake Roberts in '95, at one point we were talking and I was at a loss for words. So I asked him, I was like, are you still friends with Hulk Hogan? Because it was like the first thing I could think of to say. He's like, I was never friends with Hulk Hogan. And I'm like, but you teamed with him the one time at Survivor Series '89. He's like, yeah, well, we all make mistakes. Like, okay. But no, Jake actually put a very classy tribute out to Hogan today because I know they were not friends and they were not close, but he did make a very classy statement acknowledging that he was larger than life, and I thought that was an excellent thing to do. But yeah, and I met Nash, who credits Hogan for building the business and giving all these guys a stage to perform on because, as you alluded to, there'd be no Rock, there'd be no Stone Cold, there just wouldn't be. Um, I met Zeus, and again, a lot of people have their opinions about how other people should feel. Especially, okay, yeah, Hogan, by most accounts could easily be called a racist, and justifiably so. But then you have people who worked with him and knew him, and I met Zeus, Tom Lister, God rest him as well. We lost so many people. And I asked him, I was like, what was it like working with Hogan? He's like, man, I owe everything to Hulk Hogan. I love that man. Everything I have is a Hulk Hogan. Because he got him into No Holds Barred. He was a struggling beginning actor, and he definitely had a presence. And, No Holds Barred wasn't a great Oscar-worthy movie, but it was, people saw it, and people saw Zeus, and they were like, oh my God. And then they did some house shows with him and this and that. He wasn't a good worker, but he was out there. And then next thing you see him in Friday and all these other things, and then The Dark Knight, and all of it started with No Holds Barred. So I met him at a convention in like 2009 or 2010 or whatever. And yeah, I just asked him, and he didn't even hesitate. He's like, man, I owe everything I have to Hulk Hogan. And there's a lot of people who say that. And a lot of marks don't want that. They like the discord. They don't want to believe that Hogan and Randy made up, or they don't want to believe that Hogan and Warrior made up, or whatever. Well, but why would a lot of these people lie, right? But they make things out to be a much bigger deal than the boys do. Like, people talk about shit from 20 years ago that the boys don't even remember. And again, I'm in the business, so I could swear this to you. The shit people talk about on the internet Like, well, obviously so and so has heat with such and such because of this shit from fucking 2003. No, they don't. Hate to break it to you, no, they don't. Like, people grow up and they move on, right? And not everybody takes shit so fucking personally. It makes for good copy on the internet for dumb people, but reality doesn't match up to these things that people choose to believe. So, people can choose to believe that he was this horrible person, but other people can acknowledge that he did a lot of good for people too. And that's factual, that's actual, that's real, that's measurable. So, as a big picture guy, I just look at it like, no, you can't excuse a lot of that shit that he said, that he did, and you shouldn't excuse it. But at the same time, I mean, how much good did he do for how many people? If you're in the wrestling business and you ever cashed a 7-figure check, you can thank Hulk Hogan for that. Anybody who's ever wrestled at WrestleMania can thank Hulk Hogan for that. Any wrestler who's ever had an action figure made of them or who's ever been in a video game, thank Hulk Hogan for that. Yeah, there's this whole other unfortunate side to things. And that's real, but it's not like he killed anybody. It's not like he killed his wife and kid. And you still have people claiming conspiracy theory because they love the fucking way he did a German suplex. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The things people condone and the things people condemn, I wish people would be really more consistent. There's no defending a lot of what Terry Bollea was about. He was my greatest hero, my greatest embarrassment, unfortunately. But at the end of the day, the positive things were real too. That's right now. That's what I'm holding on to, is that all of that was real too. It meant something to a lot of us. It definitely did to me.
I'm looking forward to do the show today because I know a lot of people have their opinions and their whatever, but I'm like, dude, it's Hulk Hogan. Like Johnny and I, we wouldn't have cared enough to meet Hall Nash if it wasn't for Hogan. Even Johnny was asking, say, is Hogan going to be there? Because that would have been even more epic to have all five of us doing the things back then, despite what you might think now. But back then, I mean, and we wouldn't be watching AEW live shows if Hogan didn't inspire us as kids to get us into the whole wrestling thing. I mean, we kind of hop in and out of wrestling throughout our lives. I mean, now we're a bit more into it because we watch AEW religiously, better for worse. But Hogan got us there, you know what I mean? And yeah, he inspired out the kids and stuff. And a lot of the wrestlers nowadays are wrestlers because Hogan inspired them anyway. So,
Yeah, absolutely.
like them or hate them, and I'm sure some of these wrestlers don't, they don't do the stuff he did, whatever. But they're still around and they're still wrestling and they inspire other people, and it just goes on and on and on. But it all started with Hogan inspiring them. So
Yeah, I mean,
we wanted
like
to
anybody
help
else,
remind people of the positives and not just like dwell on the negatives and everything.
I feel like it's important to take the good with the bad, and you shouldn't
Hmm.
ignore it either, because
Yeah,
ultimately everybody is both, and everybody is the sum total of both. But at the same time, people don't hate the Beatles because John Lennon beat up women, right?
he
It's
did.
like, yeah,
Oh
he
wow.
was
Okay,
very
I
open.
couldn't tell. That was an example, due to your
He was
you know.
repentant about it, but he was also open about it. Like, he
Oh
was like,
wow.
yeah, but we still love the Beatles, right? People still put them up there, and they're like, they just say, well, he was a flawed person. That's what they
Mm.
say. Like, they're like, well, he inspired millions of people who then in turn inspired millions more, but he wasn't a saint, right? We don't need to put him on a cross. We don't necessarily need to make his birthday a national holiday. We could
Hmm.
acknowledge that he was a overall decent person who did bad things sometimes. And like I said, if you're going to judge any of us at the worst of our moments, we're all going to burn in hell. So hopefully that's not how it works. Um, in one of his books, Hogan talked about the steroid thing
Mm.
and how he lied initially and how he should have just told the truth and how lying about it was the worst thing he ever did to that
Well,
point.
the thing is, when you said say your prayer to take your vitamins, you didn't specify what kind of vitamins.
Well, but here's the thing. He said, yeah, a lot of people called me a liar and a hypocrite, and they were right because I was a liar and a hypocrite. He's like, but here's the thing. even though I didn't live up to it, what I was saying was still the right thing for people to do. I never told people to do the wrong thing. Even if I was doing the wrong thing, I didn't tell people to do the wrong thing. I
Yeah,
only
that's true.
wanted people to do the right thing. And he said, I make no apologies for anything I ever told people. Because even though I fell short, train, say your prayers, and eat your vitamins is the right way to do it. Taking steroids the wrong way to do it. He's like, don't, so don't listen to what I did. Listen to what I said. He's like, because I'm not going to apologize for telling people to follow the good path. I can fall short. I can make mistakes, but it's still the right thing to do, and I won't apologize for that. And yeah, I get it because we all fall short. Nobody's ever the person they want to be all the time. But you know, when you're a little kid and you don't have a role model, maybe your dad's a drunk, maybe your mom isn't there, who knows? But you could see someone like Hulk Hogan telling you to do the right thing and be brave and to tell the truth and to fight back when people try to pick on you and all of these things, and it can be real to you and it can be powerful and meaningful. And I don't think that it should be completely erased because the person behind all of that was deeply imperfect. He
Yeah.
still, the message he put out to people was still the right message and it was still real. It's like,
The thing, despite everything, if there was some con nearby and he was there, and as long as he didn't charge no like $500 for an autograph or nothing, no crazy prices like that, but I would still want to meet him, and just
I
yo,
mean,
dude.
like a lot of people I know are conflicted, but a lot of people I worked with, a lot of people who they knew, they knew some of the stuff he said, and they're of that group of people he said those things about, and they're like, well, people say stupid shit. Like that's their opinion. Nobody has to share their opinion. I know just as many people who are deeply angry, and they have a right to their opinion too. But I do find something wholesome when there's the people I work with who have every right. They're of that group of people who have every right to hate Hulk Hogan, and they could still find it in themselves to just shrug it off and be like, everybody says stupid shit. I still like
Yeah,
him.
everyone at work was like telling me to like. I mean, I already knew like I took my lunch break and DJF posted, Hogan died. Whoa, what? Whatever. When I went back to work, the work chat was all like Hogan died. Oh my god! And everyone said their little stories and their things too, and posting memes and pictures of them and things. But no one said like, well, he's a bad person. Everyone was remembering him and talking about when he saw him as kids and things like that.
But like I said, even people who knew, and again, like my supervisor, he's a older black gentleman, and he hadn't heard about it. I told him about that stuff because I said, yeah, it was unfortunate, all that racist stuff, and he was like, what do you mean? And I told him the whole story, and he was like, wow, that's fucked up. Like, and he's like, well, but a lot of people are fucked up. What are you gonna do? He's also 60 something years old and he's seen and done it all. He's experienced like actual racism. He's not worried about what somebody said when they were drunk or whatever. But again, that's his opinion. Like, people are entitled to how they feel. I know just as many people who are like, fuck that guy. And you know what? I'm not gonna tell him not to feel that way. I think maybe saying it out loud is a little tactless at the moment, but what are you going to do? Ultimately, anybody who feels that way, the only person responsible is Terry Bollea. He had every opportunity. The biggest tragedy is he never got that redemption arc because he could have. He wasn't interested.
Yeah.
I'm so sad about that.
And that's the thing too. In a certain way, I kind of think like he didn't care to redeem himself because a lot of people love him anyway. You know what I mean? Like regardless of whatever, there's still people lining up across the line to meet him and pose with him and stuff like that. I think if it was more of a matter of maybe he really was losing like a lot of fans, and you see empty lines from. Maybe he would have done the redemption arc, but I feel like why? Who cares? I got people around. I got people around the block, brother. You know, so
I've known so many people.
that's kind of too. You know what I mean?
A lot of people I've known, they get to a certain point in their life where they just are who they are and they stop making apologies for it. They're like, whatever, I'm too old to care. I think he hit that point. I think the divorce from Linda really messed him up. I don't think he ever really recovered from that because I know for whatever happened and for whatever she said about him, I know he loved her a lot. And as somebody who paid attention to his whole life and career very closely, I noticed he changed a lot after the divorce. I'm not making excuses for him, but I just, he went to a dark place and I'm not sure he ever got out of it. Unfortunately, it's very sad, but he had chances. He chose not to take them. And all life is a lesson. When I was in therapy and I was in a rehab place, I was in a hospital and I didn't necessarily want to be there. And the one doctor, he said to me, like, don't think you're being punished or being taught a lesson. And I said to him, everything's a lesson. And he kind of like, he wasn't expecting me to say that. He's like, okay. But yeah, because it is, everything's a lesson. And, the lesson of Hulk Hogan, one of the things I take from it is that all you have in life really is your legacy. And he could have had a flawless legacy. You know, if God forbid this had happened 20 years ago, everybody would have loved him. But, he said and did some stupid things, and then he refused to make it right when he had the opportunity. So now people are conflicted. A lot of people are feeling one way, some people are happy, and it shouldn't be that way. It's unfortunate, but ultimately, the only person to blame is him. And
And
it's a
just the
lesson.
fact that whenever WWE moved to like Netflix or whatever it wasn't that that's it. Hogan came out, I think that first day to like pump it up and yeah, and everyone fucking booed like crazy. And again, like you said, it's that the
For
last
so
20 years that did that. That should have been a moment to cheer, to root it up, oh yeah,
that was his last.
you know.
I think it's all bad timing because unfortunately, it's with today's climate, and then like people remembering all the bad things he said or whatever. That it
And this is
kind
the
of
one thing too. A
gives
lot
people
of people
feel a
never
certain
let
way.
that go, even though
Wow,
he's yeah.
unfortunately.
I mean, they
That's
don't
another
have
thing. Like
to.
like a lot of
They
people
don't have
never
to
let
let
that
go.
first part go, even though he has apologized for it a couple of times. He's made amends a couple of times, but
He
and
didn't
he's
really
done
apologize.
bad stuff, like worse stuff down the line. Then of course, like more stuff started coming out about his backstage politics to whatever. But it all goes back to that thing he said. That's the thing that most people don't let go, even though he's done. I don't know.
Well,
And I
here's
do understand the
uh,
gravity. I understand. I'm not forgiving it or saying it's a minuscule thing, but I'm just saying it's kind of odd that, like, let's say, uh, I don't know, you kick your wife or something, and but then you do worse things down the line. You murder people. You push grannies into traffic. You kill a dog or something. But everyone ignores that and goes right back to whenever you kicked your girlfriend or something. I don't know. You know what I'm trying to say. It all
yeah.
goes back to
It's
that one thing.
it's just the thing is a grown man knows better, and he should have known better. He should have, like I understand how he grew up, so I understand why certain things were hardwired into his brain and his beliefs, but still not excusable. And
Yeah.
by that point in his life, he was already social security age, not excusable. But at the end of the day, um, you know, like I said, I'm choosing to weigh all of it and focus on the positive impact that he had on so many people. And as I said, I pay tribute to him every time I go to the ring. One of the greatest experiences of my entire career happened a few months ago at High Ground Pro Wrestling in Pennsylvania. That we had a tribute show where everybody came in. We all did a gimmick of a wrestler from the past. We had, honky tonk man guy and a guy come out as Kane, and of course I did the Hogan gimmick. We'll show the pictures. Here's where we
Yep.
put the pictures in.
The Hollywood Hogan.
And it was, we did the gimmick battle royal, and it was one of the greatest experiences of my career because I got to pay tribute to him in a very substantial and real way. I came out with the tights and the boas, and as soon as I came out, the people went crazy. And I came out with the Hollywood, and then wrestled the match as Hollywood. But then by winning the Battle Royal, I won a title shot too. So I was ecstatic and over the moon. So I cut a promo after the match saying how happy I was and that I felt like a real American. And we brought it back with that music, and we ended the show with me doing the huge pose down for all the fans. And it was a lot of fun. And, if I never get any other opportunity to pay tribute, at least I got to do that. And it was one of the most fun things I ever did. I was so grateful to everybody at High Ground for indulging me and letting me do that. I had no idea going in that I was going to win the thing and close the show.
Oh,
So
wow.
yeah, when I get there, I told them everybody said what gimmick they were coming as, so they knew I was doing the Hogan thing. I get there and they're like, "You're going over main event." I'm like, "Oh wow, all right," and it meant so much. So I can't thank everybody at High Ground enough for giving me that opportunity. And yeah, and it got a hell of a reaction. I'll say this, if you've seen the tape and the pictures, I do a pretty good Hogan, and
Yeah.
that's not even new. Like I said, when we were kids, we would play wrestle. I was Hogan, and then when me and my wife first met, we were Hogan and Sting for Halloween, and just all these things. So yeah. I'm so
I,
emotional right now. Huge impact on my entire life, not
yeah.
just everything. It's
I
just such a
remember back then because it was during the time that Jesse the Body Ventura became governor, and it was still during the Hollywood Hogan stuff. So it was funny him saying like, "Well, if Johnny Body Ventura is going to be governor, I'm going to run for president, brother." And Bobby the Brain and them were saying, "Oh no, oh man, can you imagine that? They're going to turn the White House into the Black and White House, and instead of
yeah.
the president theme, when he comes out, they're going to be like."
I
He
remember
comes down.
I remember the girl everybody in school had a crush on, the head cheerleader. It was in like history class or social studies. We were in high school, and somebody mentioned, they're like, "Did you hear Hulk Hogan's quitting wrestling to run for president?" And everybody was laughing, and then out of nowhere, this girl's just like, "I'd vote for him," and it was like, "Well, okay."
I feel conflicted too because I feel like, okay, I like Hulk Hogan, but as a wrestler back then, before he did his mistakes, because now it's kind of hard not to think too much about that. It's like, I'm sorry, he ruined it himself. He tarnished his legacy. It's like, imagine if I don't know if Macho Man did anything like that. Like, I don't think he never did, but
Not
I
to
don't know
that
if Macho Man
extent, no.
ever did anything super controversial. But imagine if Macho Man did something like that, it would kind of ruin
I
the.
mean, the only thing that Macho Man did was that he was too controlling to Elizabeth, but that kind of, people, it gets kind of forgotten. And the bad thing is that with Elizabeth cheating on him, I mean, that kind of like ruins the thing. And also the rumors of whether or not Macho Man did stuff to Stephanie, but that's still kind of forgotten.
But the only thing about Hulk Hogan though is that I equate him to, I don't know, celebrities, because a lot of celebrities are controversial and they all do weird shit. Well, I gotta say right off the bat, love him or hate him, because he has his controversies, but wrestling wouldn't be what it is if it weren't for Hulk Hogan. But on the other side, I'm also like still in shock that he passed away today. I still cannot believe that it happened. It's a part of my mind is kind of like, no, 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 cannot. That's not true. I mean, there's no way Hulk Hogan passed away. Like,
Still doesn't feel real in a way.
Yeah, the
yeah,
thing
like
is,
I just
I
thought about
heard
this a
he
few
was in
hours
a
ago.
coma.
I'm kind of like still kind of like, damn, like that really happened. Like,
Like I
Yeah,
heard he was in a coma the last couple of days, but I just didn't. I was still thinking he was gonna, kick out of it, so to speak, kick out at two. You know what I mean? Like I wasn't thinking this
said
was
that
gonna be it.
some people said that, and some people said that was bullshit. So it's hard to know who to believe. I'll say this: I never really, unfortunately, he was right, but I never really want to put too much faith in anything that piece of shit Bubba the Love Sponge says. Um, I mean, he was a big part of Hogan's reputation being shot to hell. Let's not forget that. So, it's unfortunate though, because he was the first one to start the rumors and everything. It was just yesterday,
Oh,
Bert and a bunch of people, Jimmy Hart, Hogan's wife, B. Brian Blair, Jacques Rougeau, they all came out just yesterday and said, no, he's fine. Everything's fine. He's getting over
oh,
surgery, but he's fine. So it's just weird. Like Bubba started the rumors, oh, he's dying and this and that. And then, yeah, it turned out to be right, but I don't know. It really sucks that he was right because I hate that scumbag. And
yeah.
I don't necessarily think everybody was lying. I think maybe they were trying to protect him to a point
And
because you know
also,
how
hopes that he'll.
yeah, you know how families are when somebody's not doing well. Like they close ranks a little bit. They put things out there on a need to know, and if you don't need to know, you don't need to know. I understand it. I don't necessarily think people were lying. I think they maybe were hopeful, and then yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. But I think we're gonna wrap it up for now. I think we've most said our things. It looks like today was such a weird day because so many of our other buddies just came home to work super late. I know one of our buddies want to drink it up on pay respects for Hogan, but I think now they're all like dead to the world or hungover or
They're,
whatever.
they were
So we
with us
didn't
in
have as many
spirit.
people we were expecting to come in. But it was such an unexpected thing. I mean, I heard the news. I'm like, dude, we gotta do a podcast to give our thoughts out and stuff. Well,
We did this because I wanted to say something because just like with Superman, I always say I'm the biggest fan, and if somebody says otherwise, I'll gladly fight them for it. And I am pretty sure I'm the biggest Hulkamaniac. Um, in spite of all, and I never, and I want to be clear, there's things that you can't excuse or whatever, but at the same time, I'm just a big picture person and a realist, and I think you have to take the good with the bad with the good. And if you weigh it all out, I still think that the positive outweighs the negative, even if the negative is inexcusable and it's real. It's a weight on the scale. But at the same time, I still think that all of those Make a Wish kids and all the careers that he helped just by being in the ring with certain people, and then all the people he turned into wrestlers and wrestling fans, I think that I have to believe that his legacy is still a net positive, but I don't think you should or have to ignore the negative. But I do think that if you take it all in, I think you still come out ahead. Because I have to believe that a human being's legacy is everything they do, good and bad. Otherwise, what are we living for, right? Like if it's only about the bad things, then what the hell is the fucking point? So
yeah,
and when you've done that much good for that many people, that's still something it should be celebrated. It shouldn't be forgotten and erased. And hopefully, and I do think ultimately that will be his legacy. It's just unfortunate that that legacy comes with a giant asterisk.
yeah. And that's the thing. Even right now with the podcast, some people were kind of like, I don't know about that, man. But I'm like, I mean, it's Hulk Hogan. What can you say? It's Hulk Hogan. And I mean, I would even say the Diving Cutter wrestling podcast wouldn't even be here without Hulk Hogan. And we do bring him up a lot. He comes up a lot in conversation in episodes, even if it is taunting the let's go for me, brother. We're comparing Mercedes to that and all that, stuff like that. But
I just talk like that now because for the first, for my entire life since I learned to talk, I was watching him talk. So I just talk like that now, and people don't even blink. I even call girls brother. It's fine.
yeah. So yeah, that's all I gotta say for now. I mean, may rest in peace. See what happens. I mean, I don't know any other things. We'll see how history goes on and how you look back at them. I mean, maybe like you said, maybe in a couple of years they'll acknowledge more. I mean, obviously he's not around to cause any more drama and any more, things and any other mistakes to tarnish his career even further. You know what I mean? But
At the end of the
yeah, we'll
day,
see what story time tells.
at the end of the day, you know, there's still to this day only a handful of people that even regular people who don't watch wrestling will immediately recognize, not even from name, but by face. Like everybody knows who Hulk Hogan is. Some people, they might have heard of John Cena, but they maybe couldn't pick him out of the lineup. A lot of people know The Rock, a lot of people know Steve Austin, but Hogan was the first. Hogan was the first professional wrestler to transcend that boundary to the point where everybody's grandma knew it.
Yeah.
And so many little kids like me had a million posters on their wall. And I didn't quite get there, but so many people looked at Hulk Hogan and said, that's the kind of person I want to be. I want to be somebody who takes on any challenge and overcomes. I want to fight the good fight. I want to beat up the bad guys, stand tall when it's over, drink in the adulation. And he's the reason why so many people, even people who won't say it out loud, but he's the reason why so many people got into professional wrestling, and people like me who decided to lace up a pair of boots. And I'm so grateful that I at least had the one opportunity to tell him that he's the reason why I do what I do.
Mm-hmm.
And I know he heard it a million times from a million people. I know that it was, a voice in the crowd that day, but to me, it mattered a lot. And, like you said, a lot of us wouldn't be watching wrestling. A lot of us wouldn't have had a million of the experiences that we've had related to professional wrestling, up to and including this podcast, if not for Hulk Hogan. So we have to pay our respects. We have to salute the man and all that he stood for, and try to focus primarily on positive things he stood for. Train, say your prayers, eat your vitamins, and most of all, believe in yourself. That's the one that was added when he came back from the earthquake squash. And when he said that's the most important one, the fourth commandment, believe in yourself. It changed the game for a lot of us. And that's why we do what we do. So, it's a horrible day. It's a sad day. It's a day a lot of us saw coming, but like losing a family member, even when you can brace for it, it doesn't make it hurt any less, and it doesn't change anything. It's just like a wrestling match. You break for impact, but it still hurts. That's what I tell people. They're like, "Oh, that shit's phony." I'm like, "Well, you brace for impact, but it still hurts." And that's what this was like. Hulk Hogan was not a young guy. He wasn't a healthy guy. He was having problems. Clearly, he couldn't even rip the shirt at one, a couple months ago. It was sad to see. Um, so you expect it to a point, and you get ready for it to a point. But just like losing a family member, losing a parent, or anybody close to you, you're never ready.
Yeah.
You're just not ready. And I knew this was coming for a long time, but I wasn't ready, and I was never going to be ready. It hurts.
Yeah. But yeah, no, like I said, we'll remember the good. I mean, we won't excuse or ignore the bad, but he did a lot of good and everything, and we'll just close it there. So for this special episode of the That Kind of Wrestling podcast, we'll remember Hogan, the stuff that he did. Again, podcast probably wouldn't even be here without him and
He was the
everything.
greatest. He was the
So
greatest of all time, and I'll die on that hill. There were maybe
yeah,
people who sold more T-shirts, but there was never anybody who mastered the connection between performer and the fan, and just to distill professional wrestling and what makes it great down to its purest, simplest form. And which at the end of the day is less is more. If you want to have a career in professional wrestling, you have to marry that philosophy that less is more, or else you're not going to last. And he epitomized that, and he took that philosophy all the way. And he's in everything I do. And I know I'm not the only one.
So to wrap it up, do you all want to do one final Hogan impression? Which I'm pretty sure, like I said, we probably do those all the time, anyways. But if we could all take a quick turn
I'll let you
and paying
first.
respects, I'll just say, "What you gonna do, brother? What is 24-inch python? And that's wild on you." You know, Johnny.
I don't know what runs wild on you? What else did he
Yeah.
say?
Well, you could say something like Hulkamania's running wild or something like that, or you could say, "Let me tell you something, brother."
Let me tell you something, brother.
I will leave Rikki for best for last, but I know you can do a good one.
Do a whole damn promo.
Well, you know something, brother. What you people need to realize, man, is that when it comes down to it, and when you're talking about the greatest of all time, brother, when you're talking about people who changed the game, who transcended this business that we call professional wrestling, Jack, you've got to recognize that the face on the very top of Mount Rushmore, man, is the greatest of all time, the one and only, the icon, the immortal Hulk Hogan himself, brother. Because when you compare all the other superstars, all the other professional wrestlers who've ever come down the line, man, when you're talking about the Nature Boy, Buddy Rogers. You're talking about Gorgeous George, Bruno Sammartino, the Nature Boy, Ric Flair, Sting, Lex Luger, Stone Cold Steve Austin, The Rock, and everybody in between, man. You've got to realize that every single one of them is standing in the shadow of these 24-inch pythons, brother, because these pythons built the stage that all these other little dogs are walking around standing on right now, brother. If it wasn't for Hulk Hogan, brother, professional wrestling as we know it wouldn't be here today, man. If it wasn't for Hulk Hogan, brother, all these Johnny come latelys you see out here, wrestling wouldn't be here, man. That's why. We got to take it all in, man. We got to look at the big picture and we got to realize that this is where the power lies, man. And there's only one greatest of all time when it comes to the sport of professional wrestling. There's only one man who can claim to be bigger than the business. One man who can claim to be immortal over all others, brother. Yeah, you got your Stone Colds, you've got The Rock, you've got Bret the Hitman Hart, and everybody else. But there's only one man who stood in front of 93,000 people, who took that 550-pound giant, cinched up in the law position, and slammed him down through the center of the earth, brother. And that's Hulk Hogan, man. Yeah, whether it was Nick Bockwinkel, Ted DiBiase, the Macho Man, ooh yeah, or anybody else. He faced them all down, and he dropped the leg and put every single one of them down for the 1, 2, 3. So when you're up there, brother, in that great big battle royal in the sky, man, whether it's Andre the Giant, whether it's Roddy Piper, whether it's that stinky, nasty Adrian Adonis, whether it's that big, nasty Earthquake or that big boss man, or whether it's, ooh, yeah, Macho Man running wild with Miss Liz. Who's it going to be to step up to take on those 24-inch pythons first, man? Because there's a lot of unfinished business. And that great big battle royal in the sky is where it all goes down. And if we're lucky, we'll get to be part of it one day, brother. But until then, you got to look yourself in the eye and you got to face the truth, brother. And you got to ask yourself one question. What are you going to do, man? What are you going to do when those 24-inch pythons and the legacy of Hulkamania runs wild on you?
Oh, that's epic, man. Yep, and no matter what happens, guys, no matter what anyone says or thinks, Hulkamania will always be running wild. So, yeah, signing off. This is Mark Rodriguez here.
Rodriguez.
This is Ricky Rocks, the God of Thunder, the Lord of Rock and Roll, the RCW American Heavyweight Champion, dedicating this championship reign to the one and only, the icon of icons, Hollywood Hulk Hogan, the greatest of all time, the greatest to ever do it, the greatest to ever live. Signing off. I want to say thank you guys for having me on tonight. This is something I needed to do, and I'm glad I could do it with you.
Yeah. Take care, guys.
See you next time.